Zach, what's up, man? Welcome to the SABM podcast.
God, thanks for having me, man. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, you've come a long way. I guess we both have come a long way since the days of Navy baseball, right? And I think that's maybe where we first connected under the great leadership of Coach Mack, right?
Oh, Bob McDonald. I think about him daily.
Which forced you over to rugby and
Yeah.
me, who knows where. But here we are, man. And you've taken a really interesting career path, different career path, amazing career path as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Post Navy. So would love to maybe just to kick off. Um, you know, how did you get into filmmaking? Like, what drew you to like want to produce films?
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, when I was in high school, I was in theater. I was in creative writing classes. My brother, though, is like went to RISD. My older brother went to RISD
Oh,
and Rhode Island School of Design, for those who don't know, and then got his master's degree at Yale. He was like the creative in our family. And I had ADHD. I played a lot of sports and I could do numbers and math really well. So I think my parents' hope was that I would go into business in some way and then like help support my brother's artistic career. Um, and somewhere, around I think at the academy, I think I maybe broke my brain. I was just like I had to do something creative, which probably disappointed my family. It was really aviation that solidified my confidence and ability, I think, to be able to be a director. I direct and produce, and I also write. And so that was something that gave me the confidence to be able to pursue something, maybe naively, that I've always wanted to do. That it kind of took together all the creative, things in my body. So started a small production company in San Diego, just kind of figuring it out. Did some small films while I was in the Navy. Did some music videos, some local commercials, just to see if this is something that really resonated with people. And I got a bunch of wins very early on. Started writing stuff, got represented in LA by a really good, manager at that time. Just doing stuff that you know about, writing about my, history or my experience as a naval aviator. And then my company got robbed. I lost most of my equipment in San Diego, and my wife at the time, my ex now, said, what are you going to do? I had applied to become a public affairs officer. That was going to be something I was going to do, but I also applied to USC's MFA program, the film program at USC, and I got in, and I just put the Navy behind me, and I really just embraced, being a master's film student, and I just took advantage of it, right? I'd already had a bit of a career. I started doing film, while I was doing that, so I kind of knew what I needed, and I just took advantage of it. So coming out of USC, and had a really strong short film that caught a lot of attention, got me repped at CAA, got a manager. I started doing commercials. That kind of took off. I was writing films for other directors as a ghostwriter. And then it just progressed, from there. And it's tough, man, because like when you're in, I mean, you've been out of the Navy for a while. When you're in the Navy, like all you got to do is wake up in the morning, get good fit reps, and you just get paid as long as you got a heartbeat. You just keep moving along. But man, when you got to dance for your dinner as a freelance, especially as an artist, it is not easy. And that has been my biggest challenge since leaving the Navy.
Oh man, dance with your dinner. I actually wrote down this quote this morning. You can't hold what you're not willing to dance with. So
Yeah,
I don't that just that's the most random thing that you just
yeah,
dance for your dinner. But that's kind of what entrepreneurship is, and that's what you're doing essentially, right? You're creating something from nothing and creating a product, right? For people to see. I got a question real quick before we move further, but kind of going back to you got some early wins. Like most people get lots of early losses, like, and maybe there's some of those baked in there as well. But like, what did people see in you? Like, what did they see like in your work? Like, what was it that got you these early wins?
it was. I just think it was like my view on the world, I guess. When you're in the Navy, not all of the time that you have in the Navy is fun. I know the recruiters are gonna hate when I say that. But I mean, that's also kind of mirrors life. And, life isn't full of just wins all the time. I think really where what makes the win special is the hardship that you have coming up to that point, right? And so one of my very first wins was a film that I did on board the ship for our Forecastle Follies. I just happened to have his camera. I was recording stuff documentary style to put together like a cruise video or DVD, which taught me how to use all this incredible software that Apple had at the time. And I had this really expensive camera and really good audio. And we put on this short film called Not Mini Anymore, which was about the mini boss, who was a former S3 guy. And he was the mini boss. And every time we were up in the tower when we're doing operations, he would always shit on the S3 guys. Like, and he was an S3 guy. And we're like, what are you doing, Mini? But he was a short in stature guy. So we always thought that his anger came from being like this, having this Napoleon complex. So it was just this really stupid short film about him being short, but also graduating to becoming the boss. So he wouldn't be called Mini anymore. And so, like, I'm not lying, like, to the minute, I couldn't figure out how to export this video, and it took forever, and my skipper is bitching at me. And it's been all day. We were recording this kind of The Office. Like, before The Office was The Office, we were doing this kind of parody. And so I showed up with my laptop connected to my TV or to my computer. I had to plug in the one eye, and the entire ship is there. All the officers, all the higher ranking officers, and like people are screaming, trying to clap as I'm trying to plug this thing in. I don't know if it's going to work. And I played it. And it was such a resounding success that I started selling copies of it on DVD that I would burn out of
Oh,
my,
wow.
and people started doing now videos of this on the ship, and I was like well known on the carrier, and I was like, okay, I was meant to do this. But
Wow.
every bit of those, I had so many losses up to that point. It's just felt, but it felt like something I had to do. I mean, people always talk about passion, and I don't know, like, especially for this, for what I do, it's not necessarily a passion. I think it's more of a sickness. It's something that you kind of have to do, and telling stories and listening to stories is such a part of the experience that I had in the Navy that it was ended up being a way that you interacted with each other. Like in the ready room, we would talk in movie quotes. You know how it is, right? And it doesn't matter what you were doing, what was dangerous outside. I mean, one of our jet engines like flamed out off taking off the carrier. That was dangerous, but everybody always came back around like the digital campfire and watched a movie or talked with each other in that way. And that was the thing that in my mind had legs, the legs of history that, we were creating at the time. And so that's why I wanted to be in film. And I think that's, for me, the most powerful thing that lasts through those losses that you're talking about. And it's the wins are really perspective, right? You just need a little bit every once in a while. It's like playing golf. 90% of your shots are going to be bad. That one, and you're like, oh, this is a great game. I could do this forever. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it's really interesting too that you mentioned that it's, something that you have to do. And I feel like when you kind of find your calling or you get some of those wins and you're like, wow, I'm actually pretty good at this. People really like what I'm doing. Yeah. And I don't know if it's like an obligation, but I feel it's more of like a pulling, like you're being pulled to this thing that like, wow, I have to do this. Whether I get paid or I don't get paid, then I got to figure that out. But
yeah, and that's a tough thing too, because it also can be very scary. Like, I love architecture. There's at some point I wanted to be an architect, but that's also like not a huge moneymaker. Everybody's got the idea of, doing the beautiful opera hall, but most architects are doing corporate design. And there's a bit of that too with filmmaking. Like, you can do industrials, you can do corporate stuff, you can do pharmaceutical stuff that pays the bills, that hopefully will finance, things like the documentary I did. But it really is a calling or a passion or a sickness that you think about it all the time. Much to chagrin of your family sometimes, the sacrifice of some relationships. But if I think it's having a view on the world. I mean, you could say that as well from entrepreneurship, like why your business sells. It is really just a story, right? What you're selling and why. And that's a story that I like to tell, and I like to engage with the people. I can't fake it. I'm really, really bad at faking it. I've had my managers and agents be like, why don't you just do a story about this? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't, because I can't sell that because it doesn't come from a place of earnestness. I mean, maybe that's something that the Academy instilled in me, but I can sell something that I believe in a heartbeat. Like, because I can see every aspect of why it's good, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, let's maybe fast forward to the documentary that you're working on currently. It's called Canon Shot. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. You want to just maybe talk about what that is? And I know it's been a long time in the making, and you're not finished yet. And
Yeah, no. It started off as just an idea, with two friends, two Academy guys, one from West Point, one from the Naval Academy, an 88 graduate and a 2001 graduate from West Point. In my backyard, late one night, probably doing things we shouldn't have been doing, talking about potential ESPN 30 for 30 things. And I brought up the idea of why someone didn't do a film about the croquet match, the annual croquet match at the Naval Academy of St. John's College. For those who don't know what St. John's College is, third oldest college in the country. It's Sheriff Street in Annapolis with the Naval Academy, King George Street. In the I think 1930, changed its curriculum from actually a military college
hmm,
uh, to the great books and studying philosophy. And when we were there, they were always the hippies, the Birkenstock wearing hippies. There was cadences we had when we would march past them on our way to the stadium for football games that denigrated them as they threw candy at us. But there was no relationship between the two schools, except for this croquet match that happened every year. And why the Naval Academies played St. John's in a croquet match, the stories, the mythology of it, existed. Like someone died, stole someone's girlfriend, whatever it is. People thought it happened. It's been happening for 200 years. All I knew was that the Naval Academy never won this croquet match. And I think, any academy person, or students with any of our academies knows that there's three things, that the academy is big on. It's military conduct, grades, and sports, right? It prepares you builds that competitive spirit, right? You can't shoot each other, in college to show what competitiveness is like. The idea is to win, and to have that mentality going into your service is really important, right? So why would they let this one go against a seeming ideological opposite, right? This is the only sport that they play together, right? Naval Academy doesn't play any other sport. 67, NCAA sports. St. John's has one intercollegiate sport, and that's the croquet. And it's because we were challenged to play this match. And they're world champions, like they're collegiate champions every year. And they didn't have a croquet team before this challenge happened, right? So why do we let this one go? And if you're thinking about too, here's the other thing. Okay, you're a football player, you're a basketball player, wrestler, whatever, some of these more masculine sports, right? That, the Navy would be proud of, not croquet. You would think, when you go out into the, field, unless you're a Marine or a SEAL, you're not using those skill sets that you learn in football or basketball or baseball. But if you're looking at a playing field and strategy, croquet is probably one of the sports that would most resemble the things you would see out, in a fleet or in a battlefield, right? Doesn't require brute strength. So why this one? Why would we let this one go? The Naval Academy loses so bad. I think it's like 36-8. Like
oh,
that's
it's not too bad, I guess.
that's an ass whooping, Scott. That's terrible. That is, I mean, for people like us, like, you know what I mean? Like the person who graduates last in the academy, I know it's Anchorman, but Christ, man, you can command a submarine or a SEAL team or you know what I mean? Like that's our thing. It doesn't matter what your grade point average is. We have groomed you to win, right? So I wanted to know why. And in this 10-year discovery of why, the reason it took 10 years for a number of different reasons, we found out so much about both schools and about the history of both schools and why there's this tension. But also this really amazing thing that happens is this croquet match and why 10,000 people show up every year, like for a croquet match. Whereas the world championship croquet match that happens every year in England, 500 people show up to, and that's including all the people who are in the tournament.
Hmm.
So it begs the question, what's being missed or what good is coming of this? And how do we make it more? How do we use this as an opportunity to further relationships between the school other than this croquet match and in an ability to create better military officers and better citizens?
Yeah. Well, what were some of the things that you found out, I guess? I guess I mean, I don't know why the match exists, and maybe we could start there, but I would maybe think it might be arrogance, right? Like the academy is like, hey, this is Johnny's like, this is your best sport. Like, we don't even play this sport, but we'll put together a team and beat you guys. Like, I don't know if that was, but that
Oh, that's really good. I mean, that plays into our argument. But why do you think that? You went to the Naval Academy. Why do you think that? Let me ask
Well,
you.
I'm a competitive person, right? And we both, you and I played baseball at the academy, and so that's how a competitive person would think is like we don't even play this sport, and we're gonna beat you in your best thing. Like,
Yeah, but that's not specifically a baseball thing. That's an academy thing, right? There's a special brand of elitism. Like my missus went to Harvard. I went to her Harvard reunion, and you can tell that there's a special brand of elitism that the academy guys and Ivy League leaguers have. But it's a doggedness, right? It is a drive that exists, I think, with all of us to succeed, which is why you've done so well for yourself, and people hopefully that are listening to this went to the academy are also doing well for themselves. So there is a kind of blind naivete that yeah, you can kind of do anything. I guess that's what made me think I could go into the film community and be successful. And so, yeah, that the mythology exists that that's how most people describe to me, like, how do you think it started? Oh, some arrogant Naval Academy guy was like, okay, we can beat you in anything. And then Johnny's like, oh, croquet. And then it goes off. I can't, I hesitate to explain how it happened because it's actually a part of our film.
Okay,
I have
yeah,
to
we don't want to
watch.
spoil it.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil, you got to watch the film. But you're not far off. I will say that. Yeah, the things that I discovered, that's a really great question. So, this is going to sound really weird, and probably not surprisingly, the Naval Academy is viewed as like competitive elitists, and these Johnnies, described that the Naval Academy are kind of like the Birkenstock wearing hippies, which isn't the case. St. John's College is actually probably more conservative than the Naval Academy.
Hmm.
One of the pillars of conservatism, traditional conservatism, is tradition. St. John's is way more traditional than the Naval Academy by far.
Wow.
The Naval Academy is actually way more liberal in a lot of respects than St. John's College. We just don't have the Birkenstocks. And I guarantee you, if that was a uniform item, this midshipman would be wearing them every day. There is a flexibility to the Naval Academy that is profound and lovely
Hmm.
and smart. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the Navy is perpetually looking for how they can better themselves, how they can get better officers, and how to challenge that. The missed opportunity, I think, comes with where do they get that information sometimes? And I think, with our new cyber world, intelligence world, that will also change. St. John's College, though, I think suffers from, and this is surprising to me. I thought that they would be the more liberal thoughts, think outside the box um, type of people, especially students, where we as filmmakers, even though we were alumni of the school, we thought that we would be embraced with open arms, being like, "Oh, you're one of us." That was not the case. Um, and that actually shut us down for 2 years. The students thought, because at least one student was driving this, thought that we were there to make fun of them.
Hmm.
And in some way, because we were midshipmen, didn't trust us whatsoever. And because the difference between the two schools, the academy's top down, whereas St. John's is bottom up, it's led by the students. Um, they balked at us, and we got shut down for 2 years. We couldn't interview them, so we had to go around them. And in doing so, we were able to regain the trust of St. John's College against this one student's voices, but it really hurt us. It's just me personally. I tried to step away from it, but it did, and it brought us into the story in a way that we weren't really prepared to do, because we wanted to kind of keep our distance from it, to try and keep some neutrality, which was really hard to do. And through the whole process, because I always have that mother bee looking over my shoulder mentality, I thought the Naval Academy would follow in step, and they would shut us down as well, but they didn't. They supported us the entire time, and they had, and they've been incredible with it. So those are some of the big surprising things. Um, yeah, other than that, I don't understand. I still don't understand why the Naval Academy loses so much. Um, I kind of got an idea, but it's just all excuses. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's something that probably a lot of like entrepreneurs face is that, oh, the man is gonna shut me down. Like I've felt like that, in different things that I've done. Um, where you're out there taking a risk, like you're putting something creative into the world, And it off a lot of times, most of the times, what you're doing is helping, that like institution or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Like when I launched my first business called Strengths Mugs. It's based on Gallup's Clifton Strengths Assessment. And I launched this online store. People could order these coffee mugs with their top strengths. Gallup had created this assessment, and I was like, they're going to shut me down. Like, I was like, that's just how I kind of felt, and it was really kind of a limiting belief, I think, where they actually really liked the product and it was helping them. And so I don't know why we face that, like we feel like that sometimes, with these
Yeah.
places that we came from or this that we believe in what they're doing. It's like, oh man, they're gonna shut me down.
There is a lot of that. I know there is that self-doubt, right? I mean, there's the artists, and it might as well be entrepreneurs as well. Like, I love this idea. I don't know about this. This sucks. And then I kind of like this idea again. This is the greatest thing ever, right? And that's like the mindset that you kind of have to get through quickly in order to get something, to market. And it's the same thing for film. Like, Ira Glassman said it, I mean, very famously, it says it doesn't have to be good, it just has to exist.
Hmm.
And that's something that, when you work in a silo, as a lot of artists have a tendency to do, it's hard to invite collaboration. And as entrepreneurs, I think a lot of, as I include myself in this, like it's hard sometimes when you just have a vision and you're like, no, this is perfect the way it is. You know, Inspiration's for amateurs. It really is. You have to be dogged in how you share your ideas and know what notes to take, right? Again, for a business or a story, you have to pitch it enough to get the ideas from other people, the reactions from other people that tell you you're onto something. And fear will prevent you from sharing those ideas. Fear of it getting stolen, fear of someone actually coming up with like, hey, you've got a real problem here, but if you fix this is a really good idea. And that prevents a lot of people from simply doing. And in my business, like you have to share ideas constantly. I've had the ideas stolen from me. You can't copyright an idea, but the more this is going to sound funny, the more ideas I've had that have been taken from me, the more that I know I'm onto something good.
Hmm.
The more I know, because if all I had was one good idea, I might as well not be in this business. You know what I mean? You should have plenty. I think the good people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know the film's not finished yet. I guess where are you at in the process, and what what's how can we help you get it to the finish line?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. So we have been very fortunate in that, early on we had some investors, like when it was just an idea, when you have a few drinks and you come up with an idea the next day, you're just like, yeah, whatever. Brian O'Hare, who's my co-producer, and I, the very next day, just started investigating to see if there was a there. And we had a really great Academy friend of his named Chadwick Watson, who was an '88 graduate. We had put together something, we made it exist, and we pitched him and said, hey, can you help out with this? We were living in LA. I wasn't living in Annapolis at the time. And he's like, you know what, guys, I love this. He's like, here's $5,000, get you tickets, get some, rental equipment, go out there and start talking. Made some connections with the public affairs team. We didn't have official, sponsorship from the academy yet, which was a long process, going through the Navy. But just that gave us enough to start to put together a bit of a teaser for it for a larger filming. And we started kind of going, we bootstrapped it, really, really bootstrapped it. And filming over a number of years, pandemic. Kevin Spacey's team was involved at one point. Then that happened. Pandemic, got shut down from St. John's College. And through the years, we just got more and more Academy people. Frank Wren, very famously, came in with one of our biggest submissions. We had J. David Harden, who was with We Are the Mighty, which was a veteran-led production company in LA. He came in with some really great money and support, local Annapolitans. Even now, I just met with Phil McConkey, who's a very famous Naval Academy graduate, was a former Giants, NFL Giants athlete, won a Super Bowl with the Giants. He's, interested in supporting. So we need, right now, if we didn't have any checks written, we need $100,000 to finish it. We've already spent 185, which, given how much documentaries usually cost to make, is very low. If we could sell this on what we project is the low end, We'll probably sell it for about 500,000. And that 100,000, 60,000 of that's going to go to the animators I was just talking to on the same Zoom call before we had this call, Mind Bomb Films. They do a ton of HBO documentary animation. They're going to be finishing up all the stuff that we need. We have Skywalker Ranch, Kim Fuscato and Gary Rizzo. Gary Rizzo, who is a six-time Academy Award-winning sound mixer, is going to be on the film. He's done other films of mine. Um, and an amazing composer. So all of those things really, it's just finishing funds. And so most of those have come from, some academy guys. I mean, in the academy and St. John's College, they both come out looking really good. It's neither one of the others. We don't pull punches at the academy. Uh, we get them pretty good, but we just had a screening at Flugel Hall right before the croquet match in April with Admiral Mike Mullen, the commandant, previous commandant, superintendent, president of St. John's College, and the entire croquet teams from both sides in a rough cut with not animation and not finished color and a standing ovation. It was a warm crowd, but it was 80, 100 people there, and it couldn't have gone better. And the film's not even done. So um, yeah, if I could put a link to my email address if people are interested in seeing, a version of it, if they want to come in and help out, we have a contract that people can sign. This isn't grants. We're not looking for donations. We're looking for people to benefit in the success of this thing as much as we are. And if that's something that your viewers want to get a part of, we'd love to have them.
All right. And kind of before we wrap this up, I know you're a story guy. Um, and like, what about the story surprised you? Like, I don't know what your expectations were going into it or kind of what your preconceived, thoughts were, about,
Sure.
you think that this is the story. Was there like, what about the whole, like, just kind of, unwrapping this, like this rivalry, this croquet match, like what surprised you most?
That's a great question. There's a number of things actually. The differences between the two schools, my perception, my own bias of my own school, not being the same. The support that they gave me was different than the support I think that you feel like you get when you're a midshipman. And so those are the big things. But I think most of the people that we came in contact with thought they were just talking about this silly croquet match, right? And then as we started to talk about this missed opportunity between the two schools, where there's other schools like RISD and Brown, you can take classes at each other's schools. I think Ohio State does it as well. There's other universities that are close by in Boston. It happens as well, where students can learn from each other. But there is a wall around the Naval Academy, and there is a Johnny bubble around St. John's College, and that prevents, I think, a wider integration between the two schools, even though we do take Johnny classes at our leadership seminars that are run at the Stockdale Institute. Those seminar classes where we sit around in a circle and we bring up a point of discussion on a reading and we just discuss it and it's led by the students. That's exactly what Johnnies do. Midshipmen would never know that
Hmm.
because there's no interaction between the two students. And I think both would benefit greatly from that. And everybody we talked to, even Admiral Mike Mullen, saw that and contacted the superintendent immediately after our interview and changed the way that officers at the Naval Academy get their master's degree to go back and teach midshipmen. They send them now to St. John's College
Hmm.
because he believed in this missed opportunity. And that's one of the really great ending pieces to our film, not to give it away, I guess I just did. But that was the most surprising thing. And I was in tears, behind the camera when he suggested this and when it actually happened. And that gave me such hope, not just for my own school, which seems rigid, not just for St. John's College, which seems so anti, establishment. Um, but using this again, this sport and this silly little croquet match where people dress up, like a Lewis Carroll novel or a Great Gatsby, um, could have such a resounding, impact on what I think is citizenry at large and our midshipmen, that was probably the biggest surprising thing. We just wanted to know why the Naval Academy lost so much. And it ended up being a cultural shift, at least in Annapolis, a small little capital in a small little state.
All right. Well, thanks, Zach, for being on the podcast today. It's great to catch up after all these years. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, learn more about what you got going on, and support you?
Yeah, so you can see an old trailer online at www.canonshotdoc.com. And my email is Zach, Z-A-C-H, at war, dash path.com. I also have a website that has all the links to stuff that I've done before, zacharyguerra.com. But yeah, send a direct email to me. I can happy to be in touch with you. We can talk on the phone. I clearly love talking about it, and I'm loquacious, so I love it.
Awesome. Well, great job, Zach. And we'll put a link to all your contact info and uh, in the show notes, your LinkedIn profile as well, so people can reach out and connect. And here we go, man. Here's to a great rest of 2025.
Thanks, Scott. I really appreciate you having me, buddy. It's good seeing you. Hopefully, we can catch up again sometime soon.